In the vast sweep of Chinese history, where dynasties rose and fell like the tides of heaven, power belonged to emperors, sons of dragons, chosen by the mandate of heaven. For thousands of years, the throne was a sacred stage, guarded by tradition, blood, and steel. A world where women were born to serve, not to rule. Where a single whisper could change a destiny, and a single mistake could end a life. Yet in this time of iron laws and silk-veiled secrets, one figure emerged, silent, calculating, unstoppable. She did not inherit power, she claimed it. She did not ask for permission. She broke every rule written to deny her. Born a concubine, she became a queen. Born in a society where women bowed, she made the empire kneel instead. Her name was Zetian, a woman of impossible ambition and undeniable genius. To some, she was a monster, a ruthless usurper who silenced rivals and rewrote history with blood. To others, she was a visionary, a ruler who elevated talent, strengthened the state, and forged an age of prosperity. History could not agree on her legacy, but history could never forget her. In a world ruled by emperors, only one woman ever seized the dragon throne. Feared, admired, condemned, and worshipped, she reshaped destiny itself. This is not the tale of a queen, it is the rise of an emperor. This is the untold story of the dragon Empress, Zetian. 1. Origins of a legend, from concubine to power. Before she became a ruler, she was simply a girl named Wu Zhao, born in 624 during the height of the Tang dynasty. Her family held noble roots, but glory does not last forever. By the time she was a child, their fortunes were fading, their influence slipping like sand through imperial fingers. Yet, in the midst of decline, one thing remained unbroken: her ambition. At 14, Wu Zhao entered the imperial palace as a low-ranking concubine to Emperor Taizong. To most, this was an honor. To her, it was a battlefield. The palace was a gilded cage, a world of silk and jade on the surface, but beneath it, whispers, schemes, and daggers in the dark. A place where beauty could raise you, and one wrong look could end you. She was surrounded by thousands of women, all vying for attention, for survival, for a chance at power. Many came from noble clans. Many had families guiding them from the shadows. Wu Zhao had almost nothing, except a mind sharper than a sword. She learned quickly the etiquette of court, the rhythm of power, the art of silence in a place where words were weapons. She studied poetry, politics, history, not to entertain, but to understand the game being played around her. And Emperor Taizong noticed, not for her beauty, though she had it. He noticed her presence, her poise, her intellect. She spoke when she needed to, listened when she didn't, and observed everything. Some say her rise began when she served in the imperial bureau, reading documents, managing correspondence, learning the machinery of state. Others claim Taizong saw in her a spark he did not expect, a mind unafraid to question, to think, to challenge. But in the palace, attention is a blade with two edges. Admiration breeds jealousy. Jealousy breeds danger, rivals whispered. Court ladies plotted. Some even accused her of witchcraft, a word more deadly than poison. And when Emperor Taizong fell ill and eventually died, palace law dictated her fate. Concubines without sons must retire to the convent, their voices silenced, their names forgotten. For many, that was the end. A lifetime of ambition, erased behind temple walls. But Wu Zhao did not surrender. Even in isolation, she watched, she waited, she calculated. Beyond the monastery gates, a new emperor ruled, Gaozong, Taizong's son. A man who remembered her, a man she had once served, a man who saw in her what his father once did, and perhaps more. Destiny had not abandoned her. It simply asked for patience. Soon the palace doors would open again. And when they did, Wu Zhao would not return as a forgotten concubine. She would return as a force no one could ignore. This was the beginning, not of a queen, but of a ruler who would one day command an empire. The girl from a fading family, the concubine left to disappear, was preparing to rise. Because she did not come to the world to serve, she came to rule. To rise to power, the silent serpent. When Emperor Taizong died, the palace gates closed behind Wu Zhao. Silk robes were replaced with monastery cloth. and the girl who once walked among princes now swept temple floors. For most concubines, this was exile. For her, it was incubation. In silence, she sharpened her mind. In prayer halls, she studied human nature more than scripture. Every bowed head, every whispered rumor, all became pieces on a future board she had already begun arranging. But the world outside had not forgotten her. Among those who remembered was the new emperor, Gaozong, son of Taizong. Not just a ruler, but a man who once admired her grace, intelligence, and quiet fire burning beneath obedience. He visited the temple, and in that moment, destiny shifted. The forgotten concubine returned, not as a relic of Taizong's past, but as a rising star in Gaozong's court. And with her return came unease. Whispers slithered through palace corridors. Why her? Who does she think she is? What does she plan? Wu Zhao answered none of them. She simply moved. First, she rebuilt her place in Gaozong's heart, not with romance, but with loyalty, strategy, and an understanding of power no woman before her dared to wield. She observed the court, learned its rivalries, mapped every threat. Her most formidable opponents were not armies, but empresses, consorts, scholars, and clans who believed power was theirs by birthright. And she broke them, one by one. Court alliances that once stood unshaken crumbled under scandals and accusations no one could prove, but no one could ignore. Enemies whispered against her, then disappeared. Some dismissed her as merely ambitious. Others feared she was something far more dangerous, a woman who thought like an emperor. Then came the moment that sealed her path. A tragic incident, an infant's death, led to accusations and counter-accusations. In the palace, truth mattered less than perception. And perception was something Wu Zhao mastered without mercy. Her rival fell, disgraced, powerless, erased. From the shadows, the serpent struck, silently, decisively. With obstacles removed and Gaozong increasingly reliant on her intellect and resolve, Wu Zhao was elevated, first as favored consort, then as Empress of China. But titles were not enough. Influence, true influence, came not from crowns, but from control. As Gaozong's health waned, she stepped into the role the empire feared and fate demanded. Quietly, she began to rule. Not behind the throne, but through it. To her enemies, she was dangerous. To her supporters, she was brilliant. To history, she became a paradox, a woman of steel in a world built to break her. Wu Zetian had risen, not with an army, not with inherited power, but with intellect, patience, and a strategist's heart, colder and sharper than any blade. She returned from exile not as a concubine reborn, but as a sovereign in waiting. The silent serpent was no longer silent. She was learning to roar. 3. Reign of the Dragon Empress, the mandate she seized. The dragon throne was never meant for a woman, but fate and iron will disagreed. When Emperor Gaozong's health began to fail, the empire looked for a hand steady enough to rule. In the shadows behind the silk curtains of the palace, one voice grew stronger. One presence shaped every decree. Wu Zetian, once a concubine, now Empress, began to guide the empire, and soon to command it. Ministers whispered, generals hesitated, but every decision that mattered passed through her hands. At first they called it regency, a loyal wife helping her ailing husband. But the truth was far more revolutionary. Wu Zetian wasn't just ruling for the emperor, she was ruling instead of him. And the empire changed, not with chaos, but with clarity. She restructured the bureaucracy, demanding talent over birthright, a radical challenge to centuries of aristocratic rule. For the first time in Chinese imperial history, scholars from humble origins could rise through the imperial examinations, not through family name, wealth, or privilege. To the great families, she was a threat. To the forgotten and the capable, she was hope. She strengthened the military, expanded borders into Korea and Central Asia, and stabilized regions long troubled by conflict. Trade routes flourished, agriculture thrived. The arts, poetry, literature, and new forms of Buddhist expression found a golden age under her watch. This was not a passive rule. This was design, vision, a woman who refused to apologize for leading. But make no mistake, power in her hands was steel wrapped in silk. Political opponents vanished. Whispers against her turned to silence, not by persuasion, but by consequence. Critics called her cruel, ruthless, tyrannical. Yet many of those critics had once demanded obedience, not for ability, but for ancestry and gender. They feared her not because she was unworthy, but because she had proven worthy in a world built to deny her. And then, the unthinkable happened. She did not simply rule behind the throne, she took the throne. She declared a new dynasty, a new era, a new mandate of heaven, claimed not by birth, but by strength. For the first and only time in over 3,000 years of imperial China, a woman sat upon the dragon throne as emperor, not empress consort, not regent, emperor. Her empire knew prosperity, her enemies knew fear, and history, ever shaped by the victors and written by the powerful, struggled to decide whether to damn her or immortalize her. But this truth stands unshaken. Zetian did not inherit power, she forged it. She seized destiny with her own hands and forced an ancient world to accept the rule of a woman. In blood and brilliance, she carved her place among the greatest emperors history has ever known. 4. Enemies in the shadows, court intrigue and betrayal. Power does not come without enemies, and for a woman who shattered the natural order, the enemies multiplied. To the noble families, she was a usurper. To Confucian scholars, she was a violation of heaven's law. Proof, they claimed, that the world had fallen out of balance. Every poem, every council record, every whispered admonition carried the same message: a woman must not rule. Yet Zetian did more than rule, she excelled. So the challengers changed tactics. If they could not defeat her openly, they would strike from the shadows. In candlelit corridors of the palace, officials met in secret. Silk sleeves concealed coded letters. Plots traveled through the Imperial Academy, through military barracks, through ancient family networks older than the Tang dynasty itself. They called it restoring proper rule. In truth, it was fear cloaked as righteousness. And then came steel. More than once blades flashed in the dark. Assassins crept through palace gardens, hidden behind moonlit cypress trees and carved stone lions. But she was a hunter raised among wolves, not prey. Their daggers failed. Their conspiracies cracked under pressure. Each failed strike only hardened her resolve. When princes rebelled, she crushed them. When generals betrayed her, she erased their legacies. When scholars denounced her, she answered not with arguments, but with authority. Critics would later paint her as ruthless. But ask yourself, should she have hesitated when hesitation meant death? Should she have shown mercy when none was offered to her? In the world of emperors, weakness was not forgiven, it was devoured. And still, even in the storm of intrigue, she governed. She reformed the courts, strengthened espionage networks, and placed loyal administrators across the empire to counter aristocratic influence. New voices rose, scholars from humble origins, women gaining rare positions of influence, thinkers whose brilliance would have been ignored under traditional rule. She did not rule for tradition, she ruled for survival and for transformation. But enemies do not sleep, they wait. And as she aged, factions sharpened their knives once more. Former allies questioned her heirs. Old noble clans, humiliated and displaced, rekindled their alliances. They whispered to generals, to princes, to the keepers of ancient rights. Heaven never intended this throne for her. The empire must be restored. The dragon empress must fall. This was the price of tearing apart destiny and reshaping it with bare hands. Victory, yes, but surrounded by shadows hungry for revenge. Zetian ruled in an age where power was life and doubt was death. And though she stood alone at the height of her empire, she stood unbroken, sharper than any blade drawn against her. She had taken heaven's mandate, but holding it meant living every day knowing that someone, somewhere, waited for her first moment of weakness, and they would not wait forever. Legacy, myth, power, immortality. History remembers those who follow the rules, but it never forgets those who break them. Zetian shattered the most sacred belief of ancient China, that the mandate of heaven belonged only to men. And for that, history struggled to name her: tyrant, visionary, usurper, emperor. And to this day, the titles still clash like swords on stone. Yet the truth, like all great legacies, is carved not in judgment, but in consequence. Under her reign, China experienced stability and prosperity rare in any age. Agriculture flourished, economy expanded, education opened to the talented, not just the well-born. The imperial examination system grew, becoming a cornerstone of Chinese governance for more than 1,000 years. Where others protected aristocratic privilege, she dismantled it. She lifted voices that history often silenced. Scholars of humble birth, women of talent, thinkers bold enough to challenge tradition. She ruled not to preserve the world as it was, but to reshape it. And perhaps that, more than ruthless politics, more than palace intrigue, is what frightened her enemies most. For the first time, power was not destiny. It was earned. In the twilight of her life, the empire she had forged still obeyed her. But time moves forward, even for emperors. Eyes once sharp enough to cut through deceit grew tired. Whispers turned to factions, factions to pressure, and then came a choice few rulers ever face. A peaceful step away from the throne. No defeat, no execution. No dramatic fall from grace. She relinquished power on her terms. A final move as strategic as any she made in life. In a quiet palace room, the woman who once commanded a continent removed the imperial seal and returned to mortality. Not broken, simply complete. She lived not as a fallen tyrant, but as a sovereign whose empire did not collapse the moment she stepped aside. A rare ending, earned only by those who built something meant to endure. So, who was Zetian? A villain. History's ink has tried to cast her as one, a visionary. Her achievements testify louder than any critic. A woman who seized power in a world built to deny her? Absolutely. But above all, Zetian was a reminder that destiny does not belong to the predictable. It belongs to the impossible. She did not wait for permission from heaven. She claimed heaven and rewrote its decree. Today, her tomb bears no inscription, just a silent stone, blank, waiting, as if daring history, and us, to decide who she truly was. Perhaps that is her greatest victory, not that she ruled, but that centuries later, we still struggle to define her. In the end, she became neither myth nor monster, but immortal in the only place that ever mattered, the memory of a world she changed forever.